Welcome to the BXG Podcast, the podcast where pop culture and nerd culture meet.
You think it's just going to be barbecue sauce?
Because if you actually read those books, it's just gobbledygook.
I really think clothes should be mandatory.
Speaking of Star Wars,
Captain America.
trailer reaction video. Welcome to a BXG Gamescast at BXG Production. I am one of your hosts, the Alpha Donut guy, Brent Bestwick, alongside my co-host. We welcome into the booth, Mr. Charles Chambers, Chucky Buckets.
What up? And give yourself a little bit more credit. The founding father of BXG. I mean, there's a little bit more weight to that, right?
Yeah, I am the head of a multimedia hamlet.
Hamlet.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. It started somewhere. Have you ever played a Civilization game?
Hell yeah.
Oh, well then, yeah. You got to build that empire, baby.
Right. We're going to be doing a fun little exercise tonight, and then we will carry this forward to number one, keeping track of things, but also spiraling this out into other similar projects. We're going to power rank some of the Sony first party studios. We chose to leave some off. We narrowed it down to 14. Part of the reason we left some off is Nixxus is a port studio. That's a PC port studio. Firesprite's very new. They're working on a game with Guerrilla that we'll talk about. Haven's new. They have a game, but we don't know what it is, and they've never made a game. Bungie's kind of its own thing. They're really I would almost call Bungie more of a second party studio at this point, just because
Almost like they bought the service, right?
Yeah, and they're on all platforms, yada yada yada. Am I missing anybody? Visual Concepts. That's support. I know there's another one. There's a team in like Thailand or something that's support. So we're leaving all those to the side. So we've got 14. Pixel Opus, Media Molecule, Polyphony, Team Asobi, London Studio, Guerrilla, Naughty Dog, Insomniac, San Diego, Sucker Punch, Bend.
Yeah.
Missing Blue Point, Housemark, and there's one more. San Diego, did I say them?
Probably. But guess what, listeners, you're going to find out when we go through our list.
Yeah. So we have. Well, first of all, how you doing? We're on the eve of Ragnarok.
That's true. Ragnarok is coming out tomorrow.
Yeah.
Pretty excited. I know this is going to be kind of like blasting in the past here for somebody listening, but it seems like reviews are sterling as expected. Seems to be one of the better, if not the best rated PlayStation studio game that's come out so far as aggregated
for PS5 or
PS5. Yeah. So it's exciting if you're into the big single player immersive story kind of Kratos hack and slash, the boy simulator.
Boy.
I have heard Atreus, his grown-up voice, his teenager voice. It's a little jarring. Coming from the first game. It's like, ooh, puberty, baby. What is up?
I haven't played that since it came out.
It holds up.
Yeah. Well, and we'll talk about that. But I think what we had discussed was we have the same. We're gonna try to come to a consensus, but we had the same bottom four, and so we're just gonna kind of roll those out, and kind of do a little bit of a description on each of them.
Yeah, let people know what's up with them, so we're not just kicking out names.
Right. So the four that we landed on, we'll start with Pixel Opus. Founded in 2014 as a ground-up studio by Sony, it is located in San Mateo, California, and has thus far produced two smaller stylized titles, including 2014's Entwined for the PS3 and PS4, and 2019's Concrete Genie. Their current project is unknown, and this is a pretty small team that was born from program students led by Foster City Studios, which is now San Mateo Studio at Carnegie Mellon University, right down the road from me in Pittsburgh. Working and developing with the Vita, the PlayStation Vita. God rest its soul. The six students from Carnegie and 3 from San Jose State University, and Dominic Robillard is the creative director. That sounds very French.
I thought the studio was pretty interesting, just because it was kind of like an outreach program from Sony to try to get, these developers starting out and these programmers and stuff. They basically went to Carnegie Mellon and was just like, here's some Vitas.
Yeah.
Go nuts. Show me what you can do. And I thought that was interesting. Concrete Genie, I believe, was a PlayStation Plus rollout when it was released.
I don't know if it was Plus to begin with, but eventually came to Plus. That's where I played it.
Yes, it did eventually get to Plus. And Entwined was fine. It was fun, but small portfolio, small team. It's kind of interesting to see what Sony ends up doing with these guys, because it is such a small team. If they're going to roll it into something bigger, or if it's just going to be one of those project pet kind of things.
Part of me thinks that everything is designed to eventually be something bigger, but the thing that I like about a studio like this is that it is kind of smaller. It gives you that almost indie feel. And it's interesting whenever studios or big publishers do that. I think like the Ubisoft Arts thing that put out Valiant Hearts and a couple other games kind of reminds me of that. And that's sort of what this team reminds me of. But at the moment, with really only 2 games out and a very small team, it's kind of hard to put them in the upper echelon. So that's why we had them in the bottom 4.
Sure.
Sony London, founded in 2002 as a ground-up studio. London has focused on casual games throughout its time, such as the very popular SingStar, many iToy games, and more recently entries into the PSVR library, including PSVR Worlds from 2016 and 2019's Blood and Truth. Their next game, however, is a departure from the previous norm. It was recently revealed that they are working on a game as a service in the form of a fantasy world based in an alternative reality of London. They have their own proprietary VR rendering tech called LSSDK that is used for PC games as well. And Blood and Truth was the first ever VR title to reach number 1 on the UK sales chart when released in May 2019, which is, I guess, not super surprising, but also surprising in the sense that Beat Saber.
Sure. I mean, yeah.
Some of these other
the idea that a VR game was ever number 1 on a sales chart
on anything, yeah.
But you got to think, I guess 2019 VR still kind of new, getting households and stuff. So, and Blood and Truth was actually pretty decent. It was kind of a spinoff of they had a compilation game called VR Worlds, I think it was.
Yep.
And then the London Heist was part of that. It was like a VR experience,
which is probably, and this is going to be kind of a deep cut, but probably people that worked on The Getaway back in the day.
Yes, probably. I mean, because it really had that feel, like if not anything inspired by it. And from my understanding, Blood and Truth was kind of like a graduation of that, because that part was so successful. They kind of built off that, so it had a little bit of hype behind it. It was kind of VR tech that was new and actually something viable for a full-blown game. So it kind of got some hype behind it. But again, this is your peripheral studio. They mess with all the peripherals. So for me, that automatically kind of puts them in a lower tier, because they don't have the mass appeal as somebody just making a game for the console. Like, you got to have the iToy, you got to have the VR, you got to have the whatever. It's SingStar. Like, that's your whatever. What is
karaoke game?
What is that dance game that everybody...
Just Dance?
Yeah, Just Dance.
Dance Dance Revolution.
Just Dance Revolution. Saber
Just
Beat.
Dance is the, you get it.
Yeah. So, that's their big title. So, I don't know. So I believe that's qualifiable for a lower tier studio for now.
Media Molecule, founded in 2006 and purchased by Sony in 2010. Media Molecule is an art house studio located in Guildford, England, known for making games with an array of creation tool sets. Media Molecule has produced the popular Little Big Planet series and a handful of Sackboy-related projects. However, aside from a small internal team's release of Tearaway in 2013 on the Vita and then later ported to PS4, Media Molecule has not released a full-scale game since 2011's Little Big Planet 2, as Sumo Digital, who has also worked on Sackboy-related projects, including Sackboy's A Big Adventure for PS5 and PS4, helmed Little Big Planet 3. And Media Molecule has been toiling away on Dreams, a game creation engine and toolkit, which was released in 2020 and has been supported since. It is unknown if Media Molecule has anything else in the pipeline besides ongoing Dream support. The four founders came from Lionhead Studios, which they headed the Fable series, and two of the founders released Ragdoll Kung Fu, which was the first non-Valve game ever released on Steam. Kojima noted, Hideo Kojima, the mastermind behind Metal Gear, noted to be modeling his new studio, Kojima Productions, around how Media Molecule has their small, intimate studio, which still develops AAA titles.
I mean, that's cool. I mean, he kind of gives props to that, and Kojima's kind of a big head in the game, so I feel like that gives him a little bit more clout. I mean, if we're clout chasing here, and also, I'm curious to listeners to how you think about this. Dreams is absolutely a game for me. My fellow cohort here doesn't believe so. It's absolutely a game. You pretentious butt. It's a game. How is it not a game?
I would just say that if Kojima is the difference between Kojima and Media Molecule is I don't think Kojima Productions is in danger of being closed anytime soon.
I don't know. So Media Molecule is weird for me, and we'll talk about what is it called, Team Asobi later. But I feel like Sackboy was going to be that PlayStation Picture Boy,
but instead they made Dreams for a decade and a half.
Right. I mean, let's be honest. Let's be real. Have you ever played Dreams?
I've seen enough that I don't care to mess with it.
It's impressive, brother. It's impressive. Now, if you just want to call it a tech demo, whatever, but some of the stuff people make in that and that you can play is pretty impressive. So
you can make in it. Show me the game. You make me the game. And then I play the game. Not I make me the game.
You're lazy.
Sure.
You never play with track editors in racing games or level.
I play with track editor and Hot Wheels Unleashed because my son dictates.
Oh,
so I'm just doing what he says.
Oh, of course, because he's in control, right? Not the adult in the room.
Never that.
But about Media Molecule, I mean, one-hit wonders, kind of. It's just Little Big Planet stuff. It's hard to really know what they would do outside of that. They had Tearaway, which was fine, kind of lukewarm. Wasn't terrible, wasn't great, didn't take off. Yeah, so I mean, I think that qualifies it for lower tier 2. I mean, the game creation engine that they have and the toolkits that they have available.
Game creation engine, not the game.
But no, we're ranking studios. We're not ranking their gaming capabilities, right? We're ranking them as a value to studios.
I don't think they add any value. Well, how many copies has Dream sold? I bet you hasn't sold more than 500,000 copies. I bet you hasn't even sold that many. 250,000.
I mean, probably it's a niche market. But that also qualifies it into a lower rung. I believe, but you had them 13, 14.
Yeah, 14.
I have them closer to cracking the top 10.
You're crazy. What was the last one? Sony Bend, founded in 1992 in Bend, Oregon as Blank Berlin and Co., which sounds like a freaking law firm. And then Eidectic. Later, the studio was purchased and renamed Sony Bend in 2000. Known for Bubsy 3D in 1996, an early competitor for Crash Bandicoot, and later the Siphon Filter series, which debuted in 1999 and last lived in the form of PlayStation 2's Siphon Filter Logan Shadow and the PSP's Siphon Filter Combat Ops, both in 2007. Siphon Filter 1 available with your premium package on the PS Plus. The team went on to work on a handful of handheld versions of popular Sony IP, including PSP's 2009's Resistance Retribution, 2011's Vita game Uncharted Golden Abyss, as well as 2012's Fight for Fortune. But it wasn't until 2019's Days Gone, an open world survival horror biker gang simulator, that the team got another crack at a AAA console game after Days Gone's critical response was tepid at best, despite decent sales figures. The sequel was not greenlit, and the team began working in support capacity on what was suspected to be a new Uncharted game, or possibly aspects of The Last of Us Part 1 remake. After losing some of its key leadership figures, the team announced a new open world project with some multiplayer elements and knowledge gained from the open world systems of Days Gone. No official title has been announced at this
time. Studio with a pretty historic series under its belt with Siphon Filter.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a very beloved series. A lot of people want that back. And the thing with Days Gone, like, I'm glad they got a crack at another AAA title. It felt safe. I don't know, like, it was done well. It just felt safe. Like, it didn't really stand out to me as far as other open world games go in that nature. Like, if you wanted, I feel like there's other games that does things better than Days Gone does. Like, if you want to do an open world game, like, it just feels generic, and like, that doesn't mean it's bad, but it's just by the numbers, right? So that gives me a little pause. I don't know if they did that on purpose, or if they just didn't have kind of the vision to kind of really take that risk. So yeah, Sony Ben's kind of in a weird place for me.
I will say a couple things about Days Gone. Number one, I really enjoyed it. I liked it better than Horizon Zero Dawn. I like Days Gone better than Horizon. The horde mechanics. Yeah, it is a hot take. Yeah. The horde feature where there was, however many, I understand what you're saying from a safe point, especially because it's riding the coattails a little bit of, the whole zombie hype, this whole decade basically of like The Walking Dead and obviously The Last of Us and the resurgence of Resident Evil and some of these different things, and is kind of riding the coattails of that wave of popularity for that particular genre. And calling them freakers was really stupid. Just call them zombies. That's what they are. But the horde mechanics were cool with that many that many foes, and I think that's probably, I'm guessing, what they're referring to when they say that they are taking some of the knowledge gained from Days Gone and moving it to whatever their next project is. The other thing was that I think that the problem a little bit with Days Gone, especially with the critical reception, was it felt like it was a very shit or get off the pot situation, because they hadn't released a game since Golden Abyss, and that was on Vita. So they hadn't released a console game since 2007. And it was still in bad shape when it got pushed out to reviewers. And I think that that's what kind of hurt it. It still sold appreciably, especially if you're listening to some of the old leaders who have since moved on, some of the things that they've said. But it still sold appreciably, and I was disappointed because the game does leave on a cliffhanger, and I do hope at some point that they're able to come back to this, but for the time being, they're not. And I think that they kind of got relegated to little brother role. You're just going to go help Naughty Dog do whatever it needs to do.
Right. Do you think Days Gone was profitable?
I don't recall. Yeah, I think it sold between, like, I don't know official numbers. I know that, and I can't remember the guy's name, the creative director on that.
I don't either.
Like, I want to say John Garvin, but I don't think that that's it. I think he was the producer, whatever. Had sold it. It's had alleged, speaking on David Jaffe's show, that it sold as well as Ghost of Tsushima. I don't know if that's accurate, but
I don't know about that.
I think that it had a longer tail than a lot of these games, because like once the word got out a little bit that the game was fixed or whatever, that
definitely had a longer
yeah,
sale period. It
Yeah.
almost Days Gone almost feels like it's going to fall into the pantheon of being like a cult classic.
yeah. I
Like
think it
it's either you
sold a
love
lot
it-
of copies, but I think it sold a lot of copies on sale.
Probably,
You know what I mean? Like I think it probably
I feel like it did
didn't-
get discounted pretty quick, if I remember
Yeah.
correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of talk about like, oh, it's an easy platinum and things like that. So I think it probably, and it was
I know
on
that whetted
it
your
was on-
chops a little bit. You
Well,
absolute machine.
probably why I picked it up. But I ended up really enjoying it. I liked some of the mechanics. I mean, but anyway, that's that's that. So in what order 14 to 11 would you put these four particular studios?
I think if we're starting at the bottom, I think Pixel Opus goes at the bottom. And then I think I feel like Bend is probably next. And then no, let me take that back. Pixel Opus, and then I would go Sony London, then I would go Bend, and then I would go Media Molecule. That's my 14 to 11. Hit me,
Fair.
brother. What do you
Fair
got?
enough.
What do you got?
Media Molecules last. They haven't released.
It
a
is by
game
far
in
the
over
best selling studio out of all that. By leaps and bounds.
London's got those filthy casuals, man.
Okay, if you take out just SingStar Beat Saber 73.
Beat Saber's not. Yeah.
No, I know. But if you take out
SingStar.
Yeah, if you take out SingStar, what do they got?
Nothing. But in terms of money made, especially over the last decade, Media Molecule has definitely lost money over the last 10 years. There's no doubt about it.
So do you think it's more of a pet project for PlayStation then to keep them around?
I don't know what it is. I don't know what they saw in dreams that for a decade they said, yeah, keep fucking that chicken. I don't know. I mean, at some point,
listen, what they do on their free time is none of your business.
Yeah, that's fair. No, I just can't. I feel as though Media Molecule is the studio most in danger of being shuttered at this point. There's no way that they're profitable. They've lost more money than they've brought in over the last decade. They haven't released a full game. You could say what you will about Dreams, but they haven't released a game that you can play since Little Big Planet 2. And they didn't even make Little Big Planet 3. Sumo Digital did. And I don't know what the reception on that was. I know people went wild for the first two Little Big Planets. So they do have that. I guess I would be willing to put them at 13 and put Pixel Opus at the bottom. I think we can agree Pixel Opus is the bottom. It's too small. They only have 2 games, and both of those games were lukewarm at best. So I'm okay with Pixel Opus as 13. Or I'm sorry, 14. But I can't agree to put Media Molecule any higher than 13 because they're not profitable. Nobody's excited about Dreams. They missed the boat. They should have put it on PC. It should have been a PC thing, like immediately.
Well, the thing with Media Molecule is you have Sackboy's Big Adventure. And that
Sumo
was
Digital.
Sumo Digital, right? So
Yeah.
it makes you wonder where that doesn't look good, right? That's
No.
your baby. Sackboy's your
Right.
baby. And all of a
Right.
sudden it's being kind of handed off to somebody else. So it makes you wonder if because Media Molecule is a small team, like we
I
talked
think
about.
it's like 60 headcount.
Yeah, it's something like that. So it makes you wonder if they are working on something that they just haven't announced and it's taking the whole studio. But I mean, we can't go on ifs and buts. We have to go with what's been released. So, I mean, it's not a good look. I mean, that's why they're on the bottom rung and not in the top 10 for me. But I think, I don't know, I think it's hard to put Bend in front of them. So, agree to disagree, I guess.
Well, we have to come to a consensus.
Do we? How about I just
Yeah.
fight over it?
Huh?
How about I just fight you over it? We
You're
fist
way
fight.
more tired than I am right now. I think I'd win.
That's true. I am exhausted because it is almost the witching hour, whatever that is. I don't even know what that is anymore.
I think it's
All right.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you what, because I don't feel confident about it, I will concede to you that I will go with your rankings of that as of now. Even though I do think higher of Media Molecule than you do,
That's fine.
given the situation, I think it does look a little bit more dire with their main IP being handed off to basically relegate. I mean, Sumo Digital is not that great. So, I mean, being relegated off to them, not a good look. Even though Days Gone was not that great received, I'll say. I know
Yeah.
you did. So yeah, okay. I'll bend on that.
Ha! You'll bend on it.
Ooh. God,
Okay.
I know it and didn't realize.
Who's number 12 then? Is it Bend or London?
London, right? Peripheral.
Yeah. And then Bend to 10. But I would say, depending on what London shows, they could easily leapfrog at this point. I think if they show whatever they're working on, this game as a service, fantasy multiplayer thing, and
We also
alternate
got
London,
PSVR 2 coming out. And who better to
they'll
work on
have
it?
some. Yeah, they'll
Yeah.
have something.
Yeah, you got to think they're going to have some tech for it because, I mean, that's their wheelhouse, right?
Yeah. So I would say that, yeah, Ben's a weird. It's just out there in the middle of nowhere, too. That's the other thing it's in.
Give them a soft and filtered game, and all of a sudden they're in the top 10, baby.
Probably. All right. Well, then we'll leave it at that, and then we'll move on to the top 10 here. So moving now to the top 10, and I think this is where things probably get a little bit more fun with some of these studios. We have an agreement on the top 3. So I'll read who we have, and I guess it's mild spoilers for the top 3, but I'll read who we have left here. Team Asobi was founded as an internal team of Studio Japan in 2012. However, with the demise of Studio Japan, Team Asobi formed as an independent Tokyo-based team in 2021, one of 2 Japanese teams. They're notable for the Playroom, a PS4 tech demo that utilized the PS camera, but more recently for Astrobot Rescue Mission on PSVR in 2018, and the very excellent Astro's Playroom, the PS5 packing game in 2020. There's no official confirmation on what they're working on, but it is safe to say that Astrobot will have something to do with it, whether it be a sequel to the very, very popular Astrobot Rescue Mission for PSVR 2, which was just price point confirmed and release date the other day, or a full-fledged mascot platformer starring Astro. Excuse me.
So here's the difference. Like, I feel like Team Asobi is almost like Sony London, but Sony London is like the Wish version. Because Team Asobi, so they had the VR demo, which was fantastic, or the VR game that was fantastic.
Yeah, Rescue
It
Mission
was very, very well done.
I think probably the best game on PSVR, the best exclusive.
It's a great experience. Like, it's such a good experience. And then with the release of the PS5, the game that they had out really helped demonstrate the DualSense capability very, very well. Awesome, all the way throughout. And it was very high quality. The game itself, like the gameplay and the music and the art style, very, very good. And I can't say Sony London does that. So it's like kind of the flip, kind of the same studio, but one's way more
polished.
Way better. Yeah, just seems to be way more polished.
I think a PSVR 2 game is a safe prediction. But personally, I would rather see a full-fledged Astrobot game in the same vein as Astro's Playroom. I thought Astro's Playroom was the best thing on PS5 for like the first year.
Oh, it was
honestly.
good. Wow.
It was amazing for a pack-in game.
Yeah.
For basically a tech, it was better than any tech demo had the right to be.
Oh yeah, and it was long enough, didn't overstay its welcome. Levels were interesting. The challenges were interesting, not too much, like it just had such a sweet spot. It was such a well done game, and you could say the same with the VR game previous. It was very well done. So I mean, if that's kind of what their wheelhouse is going to be, I'm excited.
Yeah,
I'm excited to see what they have next.
I think that they are maybe the safe bet for it's for the kids. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because like a lot of the PlayStation studios are very like gritty, violent third person games. There's not a lot that are for the kids outside of like
Yeah.
Ratchet. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And SingStar and all that, Dance Dance Revolution bullshit.
Right.
But I think that like Astro could be that character. I'm interested to see where they take him next. I'm hopeful that it's not just locked on PSVR, because that thing is going to be $550.
$550. I already signed up for my beta, or not my beta, but the invitation for a pre-order.
Well,
Day one. I want it.
Good for you. I'll get one. I just don't think I'll get one at launch.
I'll tell you how it is.
Staying on the islands of Japan, Polyphony studio, Sony's other team based in their home field. Polyphony Digital is most widely known for its popular PlayStation exclusive racing simulator, Gran Turismo. Founded as a subsidiary in 1994 and given greater autonomy in 1998, Polyphony is quietly one of the best and most important sellers in the first party lineup. As Polyphony Digital, they have two games, 1999 shoot 'em up, two games outside of Gran Turismo, the Shmup, Omega Boost in 1999, and 2006 motorcycle racing sim Tourist Trophy. Outside of its long-running Gran Turismo series, which began in 1997 and spans 13 titles, including the most recent 2022's Gran Turismo 7, which came to both PS4 and PS5. Having just released a game this year, it is safe to say Polyphony is continuing to support GT7 with updates while looking at very early pre-productions on GT8. Gran Turismo, the highest selling franchise under the PS brand. Real world spin-offs include collaborations with Nissan for body kits and multifunction gauge designs. The GT Academy, which is a development program and competition running from 2008 to 2016, and the Gran Turismo World Series, which has been going on since 2018. I also just want to point out that there is like leaks about games in development are rampant through the industry, but there's no more reliable leak than Gran Turismo, because it's just dudes in Sony jackets checking out garages all over the world.
Yeah, they're
so, what could they be up to?
Conspicuous about it.
Yeah.
So here's the thing about Gran Turismo. I feel like it's really lost its luster throughout the years. That's mainly from competition. I mean, you don't have to look any further than Forza. And I feel like that's really taken a lot of the wind out of the sails of Polyphony. Like even with the newer Gran Turismo that was released, there was a lot of kind of rustling in the community due to the monetization of it.
Yep.
And due to how long it was taking to earn rewards and stuff like that. Like, it was becoming such an investment for playing this game that it turned a lot of people off. So it kind of makes you worry about the direction, the decision making of kind of where they want the series to go.
I still think is a big seller. A-Spec, which was 2001, sold almost 15 million copies. And by comparison, GT Sport, which was the sixth game, I think it was the PS4, 2019, still 8 million. Like that's still a lot. You know what I mean? Like, that's nothing to sneeze at. And I think that it's one of those things that racing gamers are a very niche group. And I think that they are starving for more realistic simulators versus some of the more arcadey games, like maybe like a Midnight Club. But I do think that right now, Gran Turismo is getting its lunch taken by Forza at pretty much every turn. That is the one significant advantage that the Xbox ecosystem first party has over PlayStation first party, is that Forza is just annihilating Gran Turismo right now. And I mean, it's just one of those things where, like you said, the microtransactions, the monetization, etc. I've heard this argument being made a lot on different podcasts that I listen to and different kind of YouTubers that GT needs to be not really a game so much it is as a quote unquote like a platform or a game as a service that is here's your base and here are all the updates throughout.
Like pay $30 for the base, buy season passes or something like that.
Well, I mean,
cars, is that what you mean?
I have a problem with pay to win type stuff. So if you're playing competitively online, you can't just be like, here's the best, Ferrari or whatever.
The Scudo's Pike Peak version, if you that's a deep cut for you.
Right.
So yeah, it kind of makes you wonder, and like you said, Forza is kind of the king of the hill right now, so it makes you wonder how much of that is cutting into sales of GT nowadays. GT is still, I mean, just quick thinking about it, probably still the best racing game available on PlayStation exclusively.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything else that's exclusive.
Yeah, if you just have a PlayStation, GT is your that's what you're going to play for a racing game. I mean, you have your Need for Speeds and stuff like that, but as far as Sims, arcade, or you have your arcade racers, but as far as Sims go, GT is kind of your only choice, and I feel like that's why they get the sales they do, not necessarily of the product, just of the availability.
Right. Let's go to Europe. I mean, we don't have to, but
I mean that's fun.
The French. Guerrilla Games, the Dutch-based studio, was founded in 2000 as Lost Boys Games and purchased by Sony in 2005. Guerrilla is known for its first-person shooter franchise Killzone, which last lived
Killzone
in the form of PS4's launch window game Killzone Shadowfall in 2013, and has since released Horizon Zero Dawn, an open world action RPG, in 2017 for the PS4, and Horizon Forbidden West on the PS4 and PS5 in this year. They are known to be co-developing a Horizon VR game with fellow first-party team Firesprite, Horizon Call of the Mountain. But with a headcount of 360 people plus recent hires in the shooter space, rumors are have been circulating for a lengthy period of time about a new entry into the Killzone franchise or a team-based shooter such as SOCOM could be true. It is also worth noting that Guerrilla houses the Decima engine, a proprietary engine that has been used on both Horizon games as well as second-party titles Until Dawn from Supermassive Games and Death Stranding from Kojima.
Yep. Decima is pretty significant. I feel like it's a pretty above average, pretty great game engine that they developed in-house. And I mean, there's not really too much to say about this. I feel like Killzone's great. I'm a huge fan, as you know. I thought Killzone was one of the greater shooters while it was out. I preferred it over Halo. And then Horizon sales speak for themselves. People eat it up. It kind of makes you wonder the future. Just keep riding that Horizon.
Just pound it into the ground.
Yeah. Do you think that's it, or do you really think
shining that golden turd?
Do you really think they're going to spin off though and make another shooter?
Yes, I do, and I think that with that many people, I think that that's a given, and I think that, and we're kind of seeing this with this team that has been created in California that's going to be working in conjunction with Naughty Dog, allegedly working on a new AAA franchise, a new game in a AAA franchise. What could it be? What could it be?
So tell me what you want. You want SOCOM or Killzone?
It's Uncharted.
Well,
that's what it is.
Of course it's Uncharted.
That's what it is. Would I want Killzone or SOCOM? I'm not really a shooter guy, so
don't have a preference.
I don't have a preference. I feel like I'd be more inclined to play SOCOM, team-based shooter. I played the old ones a little bit. I never really messed around with Killzone too much. But I think with that headcount, and I think that they are, and especially if you look at Insomniac, where there's multiple teams doing multiple things, I think that that's something that they want to start getting into. So it's not a situation where you have this big AAA expensive studio that's just making one game at a time for 5 years. I think that they're starting to understand that they need a little bit more production out of these teams, and they need to be maybe a little bit more nimble, so to speak. And I think that that is a big part of why they brought on so many of these different support studios like Haven, Nixxus. Oh, you want to port your stuff to PC? Well, we'll take care of that for you, so you don't have to allocate resources to it.
Yeah.
Different things like that. I mean, we see with Guerrilla, they're co-developing a game with Firesprite for the VR. And I know Firesprite had some games on the original. They have a little bit of history with VR stuff. And that's a really big team over at Firesprite. And I think that that might be something there where it's like, okay, we want to support this thing and we need to put a little bit of first party girth behind it, but we also don't want Naughty Dog proper working on a VR game that's a little bit more niche based on install base. So we can get them with a handful of people working with Firesprite on, The Last of Us VR or Uncharted VR or, Jack Racing VR. That'd be dope.
I cannot tell you how much I enjoy hearing you say the word girth.
Right. Yeah, but I'll be honest with you, I'm not as high. And I said that I like Days Gone better than Horizon. I'm not super high on Horizon. I think honestly, why?
Yeah, why?
Aloy doesn't interest me as a character, and I feel like the gameplay loop wears out its welcome a little bit.
It's by the books, right? The story is interesting for me, but the gameplay is by the books. It's very it's like Assassin's Creed.
Well, give it a little bit more credit than that. I think with like the different traps and like shooting the pieces off the big robo dinosaurs. I don't play, like I've played one Assassin's Creed and was like, okay, this isn't for me.
If it wasn't Black Flag, you didn't play the right one.
It was Black Flag.
Oh, Black Flag is great.
Yeah.
I
like I love thematically and everything. I was just like, I just feel like I'm doing the same thing over and over again. The gameplay loop, it was just not, you know what I mean? It didn't appeal to me. I think that's the issue with Horizon too. I think that of all the, in my personal opinion, of all the great sort of open world and even quasi open world games that came to PlayStation from the first party on PS4, I think that Horizon was the weak sister. I think that Ghost of Tsushima was much better than it. I think that Days Gone was better than it. God of War, which was a little bit more linear, but still in some ways open world, definitely better than it.
Yeah.
Nothing else is at the Spider-Man knocks it out of the water.
Sure. Oh yeah.
And that's what I mean is like, I think that they're putting a lot of stock into Horizon and Guerrilla in general. And me personally, I don't see it. And I think that is the case with Forbidden West. I think that those sales numbers are being sort of buttressed by the fact that it is a obtainable bundle.
Yeah.
Because it's easier to get a bundle right now from GameStop than it is to just get a console. It's easier to get. I think the deal that they have is the disc version of the console, Horizon, an extra controller, and $70 worth of PS Plus or PSN money. And that is to me a better, like, if you're gonna say all of that, it's like, oh, I'll take all that versus trying to hunt a base console with no games.
True, and that's kind of the selling point now for this whole console generation. Not to get off on a rant, but that's the way. I mean, Xbox does that also, lumping it, like it's easier to find that bundle even when you do the credit system with it. They lump it in Game Pass and bump up the price. So I feel like that's just business. But yeah.
But I do think that maybe Forbidden West sales numbers are a little bit inflated due to that. We'll stay across the pond we'll go to Finland, Scandinavia action here with Housemarque. Finnish studio founded in 1995 and acquired by Sony in 2021. Although their catalog of work stretches back to the mid 90s, it was 2007 Super Stardust HD that put the studio on the map for PlayStation gamers. Known for their twin stick kinetic action and arcade style scoring system, Housemarque became associated with the moniker that gameplay is king. With other well-regarded entries such as Dead Nation, Resogun, Alienation, and Nex Machina, the studio made its bones in the indie game scene. However, due to low commercial success of some of their later games, like the aforementioned Nex Machina and Matterfall, the studio pivoted to a more AAA project in 2021's roguelike Returnal. It was after the critical success of Returnal that Sony purchased its longtime second-party partner. Although nothing is confirmed at this time, it is fair to speculate that a Returnal sequel is in the works at Housemarque.
I mean, I want to talk about their shooters for a minute. Their arcade shooters, they're very well done.
I'm going to tell you that Resogun, which was a PS Plus out of the box day one PS4 game, was one of my favorite games of the last generation.
It was so good.
It's just pure gameplay.
Yes. And just all of their twin stick shooter kind of things, they just do that so well. So I'll be honest with you, when Returnal was announced, that was like kind of a take me back a little bit. Like I was like, wow, really? Are they going to pull this off? And they did. If you listen to our previous podcast, that was my game of the year. Yeah. So they did it, and that shows me that they really have the chops to really expand gameplay, and that's what Returnal is gameplay. Yep. So if they stick with that moniker, that gameplay is as important as what it is, the sky's the limit for these guys. I'm very high up on these guys.
Yeah, I haven't played Returnal. It's on my list to get to potentially immediately after God of War, because I do
like it. I just honestly don't know if it's your jam.
I don't really love roguelikes.
Yeah.
So there's that. But I do like the kinetic action that Housemarque games have.
Yes.
I have Super Stardust on my Vita, and I love Resogun. I still go back to it from time to time. So I do enjoy the gameplay style, and from everything I've heard, it's just that translated into a 3D AAA space. So it's on Plus, so
yeah, I mean, Detonation was good too. The zombie shooter twin stick.
Yeah, I had it on Vita. It didn't handle super well, but maybe that's just
Vita.
me.
Yeah.
Hey, you don't talk about the Vita. Bluepoint Games, a newer purchase of Sony. Bluepoint was founded in 2006 in Austin, Texas, and was purchased by Sony also in 2021. Known for being a remaster and port studio, Bluepoint has produced some of the most notable remakes, ports, and remasters in the business, including 2009's God of War Collection, 2011's Metal Gear Solid HD Collection, 2015's The Nathan Drake Collection, 2018's Shadow of the Colossus remake, and the very, very well-regarded 2020 Demon Souls remake. It was after Demon Souls that Sony made the long-running partnership a permanent marriage. Bluepoint is said to be working on an original AAA game in an existing IP, and I speculate that that's Bloodborne 2. That's just my speculation.
Please. Oh,
I have nothing to back that up with.
Do you understand how fucking gone I will be if Bloodborne 2 comes out, or if even it's just a remake?
Yeah. It's not going to be a remake because it's an original game.
Whatever. But just give me something. Give me something. So we discussed this a little bit earlier, and we'll get into it a little bit later when we actually get into our rankings. I love Bluepoint. Everything they touch and everything they touch with other people is gold. Gold. Like they have not missed yet. No. And they have a pretty impressive collection. I mean, the God of War collection was great. Nathan Drake collection was great. Shadow of the Colossus, one of my favorite games of all time. And then, Demon Souls is quite possibly one of the best looking games I've ever played on a console.
The thing I don't like about Demon Souls is that possessive S at the end of Demons gets drowned out by the S on Souls. There's no reason for it. It's like Victoria's Secret. Like the possessive S in the name is. I have a problem with that.
I'm really glad you're hitting the hard issues as far as the technical aspects and the art design of the game and what makes the game enjoyable. With the phonetics that you're having issues with, like really cutting edge stuff there, sir. I'm glad you brought that up. Let me write that down. Pretentious shitbag doesn't like game over wording. All right, cool. That's noted. Anyway,
I would say
uh,
I would be down for Bloodborne 2. And I think the fact that nothing has happened with the original, no patch, no 60 FPS
not even a
patch,
PS5 patch. Even when the PS5
nothing.
came out,
Right.
like all these games were kind of retrofitting their old games
Right.
for a PS5
Yeah.
patch. And
Bloodborne, only From Software game I've ever beaten. I wasn't good enough to beat Sekiro, and I never played the Dark Souls, and I didn't get into Elden Ring. So
I think
and I
Elden Ring
played
might be a little bit easier on-
PS3. I played the PS3 version of Demon Souls, and I made it to like the third boss, and was like, nah, I'm good.
I think you'd like Elden Ring better just because it's more open.
I've heard it's
There's things you
easier.
can just skip.
Yeah, I've heard it's a lot easier, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I love Bloodborne though. I love Bloodborne, and there was
I'm actually surprised to hear you say that.
I had the mentality with Bloodborne of I'm going to get good at this. And I just any of those other games, like with Sekiro, and I think I've told you this story. I got to the I think one of the main bosses of sort of the early half of the game where you fight him in the Tower of the Pagoda and he shoots arrows at you. And I wheedled this guy down, and I wheedled him down, and it took me probably a week, and then I finally beat him, and then he turned into his second form and beat me in one, like basically 2 hits. I was like, fuck this, I'm done. And I just deleted it off my console and never downloaded it again.
Right.
But those games are hard, and I know why they do that. And I can say that I understand the appeal based on my success with Bloodborne, because when I beat one of the bosses in that game that I had struggled with for a very long time, I was riding high on my own supply.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I mean, that's something they do well. But as far as Blue Point goes, like they really have the remake remaster thing
down.
They do it and have done it better than any studio I've ever seen. So as far as me and as far as value as a studio, I feel like that's just printing money. You have the IPs, you have the story, you have everything you need for the game. Just make it look better, modernize it for me.
Sure. I think the one danger with them is, and I don't want to say this is a danger because they obviously have the chops to make games, but that they want to kind of spin out and make their own stuff. And I understand that, but at the same time, kind of what we talked about with Nixxus and the PC port stuff is there are games that need to be brought forward. And I can tell you that as much as I loved it, The Last of Us Part 1 didn't need to be a thing because the PS3 version still holds up better than a lot of PS4 games. And so I think that not having a studio that is specifically designed to bring things forward, like Resistance or some of these other games that are stranded on PS3 because of that fucking cell processor, like that's what we want Blue Point maybe to be doing, but we'll see.
I think you give them one. I think I think they've done enough that you give them one. Here's a fat sack of money. Make a game. Make the game you want to make,
and we'll see.
And then kind of go from there.
Speaking of studios who do the same things over and over and over again, Sony San Diego was founded in 1997 as 989 Sports, purchased by Sony in 2000, at which time the name was changed to San Diego Studio. As 989, they were responsible for the NFL Game Day series. San Diego. The San Diego, they are most well known for the long-running and mega popular MLB The Show series. Aside from the show, San Diego has a smattering of other titles, most notably in the Mod Racer franchise, as well as some internally incubated but externally developed games, including 2015's Guns Up, 2017's Drawn to Death by God of War creator David Jaffe. Unfortunately, the XDev initiative at San Diego was a failure, but the show remains one of the most important IP in Sony's portfolio. The problem I had with Game Day was there was a bug, or it just was something in, I think it was Game Day 98, where if the player injured his leg during the play, he would like go lame and limp, but he would actually run faster than you would at full turbo. And I would be running as who Tim Biaka Batuka and be like, please pull your hammy.
Yes.
Just
he's
so
injured on the play, and then he just takes off.
And then he just takes off like Bo Jackson in Super Tecmo Bowl.
So a fun little fact, I was actually invited in a very, very intimate closed alpha for Drawn to Death. just by happenstance. It
Mhm.
was super weird. I got in touch with the community manager at the time for that game, and we kept in contact through just PSN messages.
Sure.
And he would just send me an email with a download link to the. So it was weird, kind of just a weird happenstance that just happened. I don't even
Right.
know how it happened. So Drawn to Death was okay. I never played. I did play a little bit of Guns Up. It was fun. But yeah,
the
it's
the
all about
servers are finally being closed for Guns Up, in case
Right.
you're looking for those trophies.
right. But no, this is all about the show. And honestly, I feel like this is not that far off from, the SingStar stuff we was talking about earlier. It's a one-trick pony.
Yeah, but that trick's pretty fucking good.
I mean, it is, but I mean, it's got to run out eventually, right? And then also we talked about earlier how it's expanding out to Xbox and stuff, how it's
Sure.
expanding to other consoles. So it makes you wonder, as far as Sony's concerned, since that's the main point of this podcast, how does that affect the coffers in Sony? Are you really splitting the dividends that much? Is it really affecting?
Well,
you
they're
that
probably
much?
they're going to get a 30% rip on everything sold off of PlayStation. They get everything if it's on PlayStation.
For sure.
But they're still going to get a 30% rip of all show games sold on Xbox. But the other thing was that Xbox put the show on Game Pass day and date, which just
is
a big middle finger.
No, yeah, that is big huevos kind of a move. Like that is holy crap. Like, yeah, what a ballsy move. And honestly, I think it was the right move for Xbox to do that, just because the show is great and everybody knows it's great, but it hasn't been on Xbox before. So what better way to get it in everybody's hands is on Game Pass, and then next year it won't be on Game Pass. Everybody wants to buy it.
Right. Sucker Punch. And I think I'll just read through the last four here and then we can rank them 1 to 10 or 10 to 1. Sucker Punch, founded in 1997 in Bellevue, Washington. Sucker Punch was purchased by Sony in 2011. Their first game was 1999's Nintendo 64 exclusive Rocket Robot on Wheels. After that, they became locked into a second-party relationship with Sony, producing two of the most well-regarded trilogies in modern gaming. In 2000, the team reached the first 3 Sly Cooper games: mascot platformer Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus. This was followed by 2 sequels in-house and a 4th Sly game developed by Sanzaro, who's now owned by Meta. Following their success on Sly, the team created the choice-based superhero open-world action series Infamous, which debuted in 2009. Saw 2 mainline sequels, Infamous 2 in 2011 and Infamous Second Son in 2014, alongside 2 standalone DLCs, 2011's Infamous Festival of Blood and 2014's First Light. The most recent project was 2020's highly successful Ghost of Tsushima. A film adaptation will follow, and signs point to a sequel in the works.
I mean, all those are great. Not much to say about that. They're all great.
Yeah. That Infamous is another one of those games. I mentioned Resistance that should be brought forward to modern consoles.
Yeah, it's sitting in that purgatory hell.
Yeah, that PS3 nonsense. I will say that, and I don't think this is a particularly hot take per se, First Light was way better than Second Son. The standalone.
Oh, sure. Yeah. You felt you could really tell they were more comfortable in that genre, in that that market for sure.
Not much to say about Sucker Punch. They are pretty consistently a quality producer. Santa Monica, the house that Kratos built, was founded in 1999 and has only released 1 game outside of the God of War franchise, 2001's Kinetica. In 2005, the original God of War was released and became popular due to its time hyper-violence and sexualization, as well as its addictive button mashing combo system, perfect for any fan of a good beat 'em up. 3 mainline sequels followed: 2007's God of War 2, 2010's God of War 3, as well as the contentious 2013's God of War Ascension. 2 handheld games were published as well by external studio Ready at Dawn: God of War Ghosts of Sparta and God of War Chains of Olympus. After a sci-fi triple AAA game was axed deep into development, the studio pivoted back to its old friend Kratos with 2018 soft reboot God of War, which changed the game from a button masher to more of a well thought out semi-open world action game. As of this recording, as we mentioned, God of War Ragnarok releases the next day. It's worth noting that the 2018 version of God of War is the highest single selling first party game ever for PlayStation, eclipsing 23 million units sold. Further value does come from the studio from its XDev initiative, which is a publisher India studio incubator, which includes games like Twisted Metal Black, the Pixel Junk series from Q Games, Flower, Journey, Unfinished Swan from that game company, and The Order 1886, which I forgot. Kudos to you, sir. I forgot that Santa Monica worked on that because that is a Ready at Dawn game.
Yes, it is.
But God of War.
God of
So
War.
might as well just, the studio might as well just be called God of War Studio.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's got 38 titles. They've all been successful. Even the handhelds were great.
Yeah.
Really, like even if you go back and play the PSP God of War game, they're great. They look great, play great, very impressive. Very impressive stuff.
Not much else to say about Santa Monica. Insomniac Games, founded as Extreme Software in 1994, redubbed Insomniac Games a year later. Insomniac enjoyed a long-standing second-party relationship with Sony until being purchased in 2019. And I'm going to tell you right now, with the sales prices that came after Insomniac, they're kicking themselves. Studio, also known for trilogies, their first game was Disruptor in 1996. Studio would go on to helm the Spyro trilogy, starting in 1998, the Ratchet and Clank series, which debuted in 2002, and most recently saw a release in the form of Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart in 2021, and the Resistance series, which debuted in 2006 with Resistance Fall of Man and concluded with 2009's Resistance 3. The team took a little bit of a break from Sony to work on Sunset Overdrive in a second-party capacity with Microsoft in 2014, but would return home in 2016's reimagining of the original Ratchet and Clank and 2018's Marvel's Spider-Man. Sony would purchase the team after the success of Spider-Man. A sequel is set to launch next summer. The team is unique in that it has multiple studios, one in Burbank, California, as well as one in North Carolina. And so while we confirm the team is working on Wolverine as well as Spider-Man 2, it is highly likely the team is also in pre-production on the next Ratchet game as well.
I mean, gross.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Spider-Man's great. It makes it, I mean, Spider-Man being as successful it is and Spider-Man being a Sony thing as is, kind of seemed like it was inevitable at that point that they would want to bring them in and kind of shoehorn Spider-Man.
Yeah. I know we just mentioned the original God of War, or not the original, 2018 highest selling single game. Spider-Man and Spider-Man Miles Morales collectively have sold over 30 million. And I think that I think the number is 33 in that area. But moving on to the final team here, Naughty Dog, the oldest member of the first party studio. Naughty Dog was founded in 1984 as Jam Software and later redubbed to Naughty Dog in 1989. Sony's longest running team has an extensive history dating back to the 80s, but is well known in PlayStation circles for developing Crash Bandicoot, a mascot platformer created to compete with Mario in the 90s. The franchise began in 1996. The series received 2 direct sequels and a kart-based racer, Crash Team Racing, before the team moved on to 2001's Jak and Daxter. Jak would also see 2 sequels and a kart-based racer. And it was with 2001's Jak that Sony made the move to purchase the team. After the conclusion of Jak, the team made a massive tonal shift away from the 3D cartoonish mascot platformer brand with 2007's Uncharted Drake's Fortune. The Tales of Nathan Drake would span 4 mainline entries, concluding with 2016's Uncharted: A Thief's End. The team also released a smaller and less well-known title called The Last of Us in 2013, one of the most critically acclaimed games of all time, which yielded a sequel, The Last of Us Part 2, in 2020, which yielded a similar critical response, but was surrounded by controversy as a massive leak occurred just prior to the release that caused the game to be review bombed by fans upset with the perceived woke nature of the game. It is also worth noting that the studio houses ICE, or Initiative for the Common Engine, under their roof. The team released The Last of Us Part 1 remake in September, and although it has only been vaguely confirmed, they are working on something multiplayer-centric in The Last of Us universe, likely a take on the popular Factions multiplayer suite from the original game.
Yuck. Gross.
Gross Factions, or
Yeah, I didn't like Factions.
okay, I never even played it. I didn't even touch it.
It
I'm
was
not a
I mean,
multiplayer
it
guy.
was fun. It was just I don't know. It was just whatever.
Right.
But I mean, yeah, this is I give it's crazy that I give flack to other studios for one trick ponies, but this one's really turned into a one trick pony as well. But this one's like, I mean, let's be real here. Naughty Dog's kind of the prize jewel of Sony right now.
Yeah, I would agree. But they need to make something that's not Uncharted or The Last of Us. At this point, I would love to see them do something completely insane. Like, here's a I mean, you can keep the same level of production value, et cetera, but just make something off the wall. Like, here's a wizard in space, or you know what I mean? Just something that's not that sort of grounded, whatever action game.
Survival horror in space.
Well, no, you don't even have to do survival horror in space. I mean, that's Dead Space, Callisto Protocol. I'm just talking about just do something, just do something wild. Make a JRPG. Like, you know what I mean?
Don't
like,
do that.
Don't do that.
Don't
No?
do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Yeah, but it's like, why, from a financial standpoint, why stop beating that horse when it keeps spitting out money?
Well, because you're starting. I do think you're starting to see
fatigue,
diminished returns.
Sure.
The Last of Us.
Have the Last of Us show coming out. Like, you still have
yeah.
the Uncharted movie just happened.
Yeah.
Like, they're really just open wide and just.
Well, I think that's not just Naughty Dog. We're going to get a Ghost of Tsushima movie to go along with that. I think that they're really looking at the whole PlayStation film studios as with this type of big corporation mentality. Synergy. We have to have synergy.
Good work environment, man. You got to really, yeah. But I mean, yeah, they're leaning into that kind of hard, and I don't think that's going to be successful. But that's a podcast for another day.
Right.
As far as Naughty Dog's concerned, it's they did have a little revival with Crash Bandicoot coming out. I forget who remade that. I don't think
it was Toys for Bob. Toys for Bob did one of the remastered.
So there was a little bit of a resurgence for that IP. I know Naughty Dog's not going to touch that again forever. They're working.
Well, they don't own the rights for it. Vicarious Visions and Toys for Bob.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, that's Activision.
Yes, you're right.
Activision owns Crash and Spyro.
Yeah, that makes my heart hurt. Okay.
So let's rank these bitches.
I want to know. Yeah, hit me with your number 10. Who's your number 10?
Polyphony?
Yes. Polyphony is absolutely number 10. If it wasn't such the big gap in sales and stuff like that, just that it's been a money horse for Sony for so long, it definitely would have been in the lower tier, the bottom, 11 to 14. But yeah, Polyphony, just show me something new, make something better, get people excited about Gran Turismo again. I miss when people were excited about Gran Turismo. I remember back in the PS2, PS3 days, people were jacked for a new Gran Turismo game.
Right. Well, but here's, they made the motorcycle sim. Maybe diversify a little bit. Maybe make that motorcycle sim. Maybe make a, whatever, dirt bikes or some fucking nonsense.
Yeah, I don't know. Trucks or drag racing or
monster trucks would be dope. Do something. You know what I mean? Like diversify a little bit. You can stay in your wheelhouse where you're comfortable, but it's the same thing as Forza and Forza Horizons, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, Horizons more arcadey type
Well,
racer.
you have Horizon,
Yeah,
which is arcade, and then you have Motorsports,
right.
which is
the
your
more sim. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
no reason why they couldn't do something similar. Who you got number
And they're all on
9?
Game Pass,
What?
and they're all on Game Pass.
Oh yeah. Number 9 for you.
You're going to be mad. This might cause a fight. San Diego is my 9. That face. God, please tell me you're watching on YouTube, fans. That face could have made a mother cry.
I think I had them much higher.
Yeah.
But I think I may be willing to concede this because of the fact that despite the fact that they are a first party studio and a cash cow.
Sure.
But they're on multi-platforms now, so I don't think that it has the same allure as it did when the show was PlayStation exclusive.
Yes.
And I do believe that they are starting to run into the Madden problem of how much on a year-to-year basis can you really iterate a baseball game, a game that the rules have only changed like substantially a handful of times over its nearly 150-year existence. It's hard to keep that fresh on a year-to-year basis.
So that's what I was going to bring up to you is like, what if EA just made Madden? How would you feel about EA?
If all they made was Madden? Yeah, right.
So, I mean, it's kind of the same thing. Yeah, Madden is crushing it. The show is killing it.
Yeah.
But that is all they have, and that's all they've had for a very long time.
Yeah, and I think they've done some XDev stuff, and it hasn't really worked. They spun off, I think, some other things with like visual concepts and stuff like that. I think Visual Concepts is housed at San Diego. But yeah, I'm willing to concede that point.
Okay.
I will agree to 9 for San Diego. Number 8.
Well, now I got to know. No, if you're going to concede, where did you have them before? Give me a rough estimate. How far did they fall in your graces?
I had them at 4.
Wow.
The show, man. It's cash cow.
God. All right.
And even as like maybe samey as it is, it's still the second best sports game every year after 2K. You know what I mean? Like it still has that level of like Madden hasn't been good in like almost 20 years.
No, it's got to be the third, right? You got FIFA, then you got Madden.
FIFA
sales. I don't care whether you like it
sales, but I mean quality. I think 2K.
That's subjective. You can look at sales as a quantifiable thing, like, hey, this sold this many copies.
Yeah.
Like, so it's
in terms of critical response, you can look aggregate. You know what I mean? I think that and maybe I'm biased because I don't give a fuck about soccer, but yeah. But in my most humble opinion, I think that NBA 2K year in and year out is from a quality standpoint the best sports game. So number 8.
My turn.
Sure. I mean, it doesn't really.
Team Asobi, I think is a good set for number 8. If you're looking at who we're comparing them to, just because in the scope of things they do smaller games, they're not big AAA titles.
Right.
I feel like that knocks them down a bit. That's not a knock on their quality, which we talked about earlier, which we think is fantastic.
But they also have 2 games and one of them is a tech demo.
True, that too. Too. So, small sample size, although promising, and they've also been kind of relegated to here, show off our new stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, they do a great job of that. But Yeah, I'm okay with what was that, 8?
8.
All right, 7.
Yeah, who do you got at 7?
I would say like my my heart my heart tells me to put Gorilla here, but I think that their success and their importance to the brand is somewhat undeniable.
Mhm.
So I'm going to put Housemark here.
So we'll go ahead and knock both of these out at the same time because I had those flipped. I had Gorilla at 6, Housemark at 7.
Yeah.
And I feel like, and with Gorilla, it's just like you said. I feel like it's more of a household name. It's more of a recognizable brand as far as finances go for Sony. You put Gorilla in front of a title, especially with Horizon that's happened, and your old heads that know Killzone and stuff like that. They have a great record of AAA titles. Unfortunately, like Killzone was up against Halo and it never got what I thought it deserved. And we all know about Horizon. As far as Housemarque goes, they have mostly been relegated to indie-sized games. As far as your twin stick shooters, your arcade shoot 'em up, score games.
Yeah.
Even though, and I hate that. I hate putting them at 7 because Returnal was my game of the year, like I said. So
Right.
that kind of shows you the quality of the studios kind of going forward. If my game of the year is at 7,
right,
it's kind of some hard stuff. So what made you put it the other way around?
Well, I'm fine with Housemarque at 7. Like I said, my heart wants Gorilla lower because I think it's a me thing.
Yeah.
More than anything. I'll be honest with you. I think
that's what your ex told me too. It was a you thing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Uh-huh.
But I think that they, like, Sony itself is putting a lot of stock in Gorilla. It's putting a lot of stock in Horizon. Personally, I don't see it. But the numbers don't lie, whether they're inflated by the bundles or not. And so I think that even putting them at 6 feels, if I'm being completely subjective or objective, if I'm being completely objective, putting them at 6 feels low.
Yeah.
But I think that there's definitely 4 studios in front of them that are as primetime player as it gets in this industry, outside of in terms of hit producers, outside of whoever the fuck makes Mario. You know what I mean? Like, that's what it is. And I think that this is just kind of where they fit. So I'm good with Housemarque at 7 and Gorilla at 6.
Yeah, and I think it's just the scope of gaming that they've released at this point. You have Gorilla that's done more AAA stuff, has the chops for that. And although Housemarque's first foray into it was very good, it's a portfolio thing at this point.
Right. Well, and as good as Returnal was, it didn't sell great either. So that has to be part of the conversation. I think you and I will fight on 4 and 5.
Really?
Because I have Blue Point at 5 and Sucker Punch at 4.
I do too.
Oh, okay.
I do too. I went back and forth. I've scribbled out 20 times.
Yeah.
Back and forth between Sucker Punch and Blue Point. And I think the only reason why I put Sucker Punch ahead of Blue Point, I told you how great I think Blue Point is, but they also don't have an original game.
Right.
And I think just from a personal standpoint, that is a knock. Maybe they just haven't been given the opportunity yet, or maybe that's just not how their team's set up. Maybe they don't have the creative writers and stuff like that. They just basically take what's been given to them and modernize it, be it graphically or technically, or how the gameplay is, whatever. But you have Sucker Punch, who have made original titles, very successful original titles.
Beloved, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's really what gives them the edge here, even though, like, from a personal standpoint, I like what Blue Point has done more than Sucker Punch. I don't even know if I can say that. Like that, even that feels bad to say because I love Infamous and stuff. And Sly Cooper. Sly Cooper's great, and it's another one of those IP purgatory things that I'd love to see come back. Infamous was great. Ghost of Tsushima.
Ghost of Tsushima is excellent.
Yeah,
it's excellent. I make the same argument with Ghost of Tsushima and The Last of Us Part 2 that I make with Spider-Man and God of War. God of War and The Last of Us Part 2 were in every shape and form better games technically than both Spider-Man and Ghost of Tsushima. They 2018, 2020 respectively. But I had more fun playing Spider-Man and Ghost of Tsushima than I did playing God of War and The Last of Us Part 2.
Yeah.
It was more enjoyable to me.
It was and maybe that's more of the nature of the game because those are practically designed, maybe not Ghost of Tsushima, but more so the other one that's just
Spider-Man.
Yeah, it's a game. It's a games game.
Yeah.
You're flying around doing cool shit. And that's kind of why Infamous was so cool, right? Because it did that very well here with Sucker Punch. So
but I have to feel like that's why they left that behind, because it's like, well, you could play as Cole or Delson, and oh god, Delson Rose is a terrible character, but you could play as those guys they're cool and it's their own little story and this that, or you could play as Spider-Man. One of the probably the two most one of two or three most iconic comic book superheroes ever. And it's, I mean, if those
it kind of makes you wonder, maybe this is a discussion for another day, why Sucker Punch didn't get Spider-Man and Insomniac did.
I've heard that part of that was just because of the similarities with Sunset Overdrive and Spider-Man. Now, I've never played Sunset Overdrive, so I can't speak to that. But yeah, well, you wonder too how much of this is a timing thing, because Second Son came out in 2014. You have to imagine that with the length of dev cycles right now, that Insomniac may have even already had it at that point. Yeah. And with
a game like Ghost of Tsushima, you got to think was definitely on the blocks for a long time.
Yeah. So Blue Point 5, Sucker Punch 4.
Top 3, baby.
Top 3.
Man.
I'll give you my 3-1.
Okay.
And then we can compare notes.
So my number 1 stayed the same.
Mm-hmm.
My 2, 3, I went back and forth on.
Okay. So 3, I have Santa Monica.
Okay.
And part of the reason there is because they've never made anything other than God of War. God of War is obviously massively successful. And you could even say that from the original, what it was to what it is now is almost like making a different game.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to see a different IP out of them. And I think that's why I left them at number 3. Number 2 for me is Naughty Dog. And they slipped a little bit with The Last of Us Part 2. It didn't do as well commercially. I think that a lot of people have a problem with the politics behind it, among other things. I mean, there's other things they made bold narrative choices in that game, and a lot of people did not like them. And I think that affected sales. Yeah. And now I do think that they are in this rut of everything is either Uncharted or The Last of Us. Everything is one of these two things, and I just want them to take their talent and make something new. Like, I think part of the reason that the original fared so well was because it came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
They'd been making these more grounded games with Uncharted, but at the same time, they're kind of high adventure in that Nathan Drake is a mass murderer. Like, you can't discount the fact. Well, it is, but Indy never killed like thousands on his way to the thing. And
that's a good way to look at it. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, Nathan Drake is a fucking psychopath.
Right?
But Uncharted came out of nowhere, and I think that was a lot of what had to do with the success of that. Was it was just something different and something new and something exciting, and wow, this looks dark and all these different things. And I think that it's time for them to throw that Naughty Dog logo up on the screen and show us something completely new that's going to blast our socks off.
Yeah.
Which leads me to my number one, and it's Insomniac. And I think the reason why Insomniac falls at number one for me is because they're so flexible.
Yes.
They can make a Ratchet game and then turn around and make Spider-Man, and they're going to turn around and make Wolverine. And they are, first of all, no one comes close to them in the first party family in terms of pumping out AAA exclusive content year after year. We had 2016 Ratchet and Clank, the reimagining of the original game, 2018 Spider-Man, 2020 Miles Morales, 2021 Rift Apart, 2023 Spider-Man 2, probably looking at 2024, 2025 for Wolverine. I guarantee you there's another Ratchet game in
somewhere
short order. And I just think that the fact that they make such high quality games, they are not, in terms of production quality, they're not on the same level as Naughty Dog or Santa Monica. They're just not.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the fact that they can churn out, it's kind of a quality quantity thing.
Yes.
Where you have, like, yes, Naughty Dog and Santa Monica are maybe going to make a transcendent game, but it's going to take them 7 years to do it. They're going to make a perfect 10, but it's going to take a long time to do it. And in that time, Insomniac's going to make a bunch of games that are 8.5s.
Right.
And so it's like
they're still sell. Great.
And still sell. I mean, Spider-Man, like we said, Spider-Man plus
Yeah.
Miles Morales is the highest selling franchise in first party history. So I think that, although I don't feel like that's accurate because of Gran Turismo.
I mean, you can just say stuff. It's your podcast.
Yeah, I mean, 60% of the time it works every time.
Uh-huh.
But for me, that's where the top three falls is Santa Monica, Naughty Dog, Insomniac.
See, mine's completely different.
That's fine.
Completely different. I actually I'll start at the bottom. I put Insomniac at 3. I didn't feel good about it. This is the one, like I said, I went back and forth on. I went back and forth between Insomniac and Santa Monica. I feel, and I think you really hit it on the head when we're talking about God of War. It was such a long series that was successful before across multiple platforms, across console and handheld. Like, it did very well. And it was a complete reimagining for the 2018 God of War. Mm-hmm. Like, completely different. It's really like an amazing technical feat because it's all shot in a way that it's a single shot.
Right. Yep.
Which I thought was incredible. Like, you see that in movies and stuff, like
right.
the trailing shots and stuff like that. But to have a whole game like that was something that you don't experience in a game. There's cutscenes, and they hid those well, and how
fast travel
and stuff, fast travel, stuff like that. I thought that was great. But you also make a good point, and the reason why I went back and forth on it, showed me something else. I just bashed San Diego for being a one-trick pony, even though you're pumping out cash. I should put that same, I don't know. Like, now you make me want to flip again. But Insomniac, the way Insomniac is, you're absolutely right about Insomniac. Like, they are going to make money. Ratchet and Clank is there. They've dabbled in the superhero genre very successfully. The idea that they're getting a X-Men Wolverine game is just, God, you just give it to me. I love that. Mm-hmm. And like you said, it's nothing but 8.5s. And also, I have a little soft spot for them for Resistance. I love Resistance. Yeah. Cult classic kind of thing. Didn't really take off. And then I put Naughty Dog at 1 just because, like we talked about, I hinted at earlier. I feel like you're right with a little bit of the fatigue, but it still is the crown jewel. Like, I feel like Sony is modeling a lot of what they do off of kind of the backbone of Naughty Dog and what they've done with Uncharted and The Last of Us and stuff like that, as far as a more organizational kind of mindset going forward. For better or worse, I personally don't think it's going to work out. The Uncharted movie was lukewarm.
I liked it.
I know you did.
It was, but you know what it was? It was they could have just as easily, instead of calling it Uncharted and making Tom Holland, Nathan Drake, and Mark Wahlberg as a Sully that didn't make any contextual sense
Not at
towards the
all.
games whatsoever. They could have just called that, like, I don't know, Desert Quest, and it would be fine.
It would have been fine. Right.
It would have been
It's
the
like,
same
put the name
thing.
on it. It's got the lofty standards. People
Yeah.
have expectations. And that's
Well, it exceeded my expectations. Actually, I thought it was going to be terrible.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a train wreck.
Well, I mean, what do you think is going to be of the Last of Us series?
I think it's going to be amazing, and I think that part of it is that Uncharted is Amy Hennig's thing, and Neil Druckmann and Bruce Straley came in to finish Uncharted 4 after Amy had left for other pastures. And I think that kind of carried over to the movie, where there was very limited studio involvement from Naughty Dog, from, the heads, whatever. Whereas, and that was a Sony production, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with The Last of Us, first of all, it's on HBO. So that is the highest level of prestige TV, right? And then secondly, Neil Druckmann wrote the series. Like, he co-wrote, I mean, he wrote the original game. He's the creator.
Right.
And he wrote
the beginning, so
he wrote the series. And so he's had a more involved hand the whole way through. And I think that there's been one trailer and like a 20-second teaser or whatever, but it feels, based on what I've seen thus far, that they nail the atmosphere, they nail, the tension, things like that. I just honestly, I think that TV is a better opportunity for games to live as an adaptation versus a movie, where, the Uncharted movie had bits and pieces of every single game. Well, those are all 15 to 20 hour games, and you're trying to condense that all down into a 2.5 hour long movie. But the reality of it is that you can, if you know your way around The Last of Us and you're not worried about like exploration and collectibles, you could probably finish that in 10 to 12 hours. So that is, The Last of Us season 1 is going to be a 9-episode season. So it just kind of fits.
I would even say a limited series, 8 to 10 episodes to kind of, I think that would even be better. So I'll be honest with you.
You've seen a little bit of success too with like The Witcher,
and
even the Castlevania anime series, and Edge Runners is another one.
Edge Runners,
and great. I do think that they're smart, and we talked about like the synergy, right? Mm-hmm. But I do think that they're smart to kind of time this along the same time, fairly close to The Last of Us Part 1 remake. I think you'll see a sales bump in January for that game. The same way that you kind of saw the concurrent numbers on Cyberpunk increase around the time of Edge Runners. So I just think
they had the highest since launch for Edge Runners, like highest player since, which is insane.
So let's come to an agreement here.
I think, honestly, you explained your point a little bit better. Like, the more you explained it, I think I like your top 3 a little bit better than mine. The reason why I put Naughty Dog at 1 is just because it's like that's where a lot of Sony things are.
I think that you also have to look at, awards being whatever, but I think you have to look at the fact that between Part 1 and Part 2, you're looking at over 500 Game of the Year awards for The Last of Us 1 and Part 2. And I think that speaks to, it has to count for something.
Sure, but I mean, it's a thing. I'll use the analogy. I mean, you can go with Naughty Dog hitting the home run, or you can go with Insomniac that's hitting 10
singles and doubles.
Just all day. And I think for longevity, that matters more, because as far as Naughty Dog, what's next?
Right.
It's not going to be Uncharted or Last of Us, because if it is, people are going to get upset, I think.
Well, I definitely think you're going to see factions, and they may go away from things for a while. But I do think that you're going to see Part 3 at some point.
But Insomniac, and this is before Ragnarok comes out, and I mean, that's all Santa Monica has as far as Kratos.
Right.
Even though it's great and wonderful, that's what they got. So as far as like a diverse boy simulator, as far as like a diverse library of what you got coming out, Insomniac looks a lot better on paper. As far like if I'm an executive looking at these studios, I'm thinking to myself, wow, Insomniac's doing this and this. They have this in their portfolio. They have these in their wheelhouse coming out. Like I feel like the prospects for the future is brighter with Insomniac than it is with Naughty Dog.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the talent that made like Sunset Overdrive and the Resistance games are all still there.
Yeah.
So they can pivot back to that sort of like shooter based game if they, I mean, who knows? They constantly tease Resistance stuff on their social media platforms.
Yeah.
And it's a big team with 2 studios.
Yeah.
So where can we agree Santa Monica 3?
Yeah. Yeah, it pains
2.
me to say because God, I love them. And 2, Naughty Dog. I'm swaying real hard on this, but I feel like you make good points. So I'll concede Naughty Dog being 2. And why am I the one back in Naughty Dog? This is so backwards. I hate this. Like I feel dirty. This is oh God. I feel like Anyway, yeah, Naughty Dog at 2, and I feel comfortable putting Insomniac at 1. For sure.
That is the definitive power rankings. Those may change.
Don't get it elsewhere. I mean, you're not going to find a better list than here.
Those may change. I have an intuition that after Ragnarok here on November 9th, that by the end of this month or early December, we're going to get a state of play because they have to show us what's next. It's time to shit or get off the pot and show us what's coming.
So speaking of that, and while we wrap up here, just some closing thoughts. Who's going to be your big risers the next time we do this?
I think that medium. No, I think Team Asobi has the opportunity to rise. I think that Blue Point could potentially surpass Sucker Punch, but I also think that if whatever Sucker Punch has could either strengthen their hold on the number 4 spot, or if it looks really dope, could ascend even past Santa Monica just for the variety standpoint of things. But I do think that we're getting Ghost of Tsushima 2, or whatever they're going to call it. And then I think that I like I said with Guerrilla, it's a me thing. It has to be a me thing because the numbers are there. You know what I mean? I think that you're more likely to see, maybe if we get a good look at whatever this multiplayer centric game from London is, that they could really hop over, because I don't think we're going to see anything from Bend for a while. They just started working on whatever it is that they're working on. I think you're more likely to see shuffling towards the bottom than you are.
Yeah. Because we had just big releases across the board. You have Horizon, you have Ragnarok,
Spider-Man's this summer.
Naughty Dog can't get out of Last of Us with remakes and stuff like that. So, I mean, and then other Sucker Punch. I mean, Sucker Punch is your foreseeable future games release as far as like one of our top 5.
Yeah, I think that we'll see Sucker Punch next. I would have to imagine, and then honestly, I'd like to see what I think that you're going to see something from Asobi.
Sure.
And I think that you're going to see whatever this London thing is, and then I would imagine just kind of, obviously the show is going to be there. Sucker Punch is probably, and then I think we'll likely get a better look at Wolverine in the coming year. There's a lot of
House Marquee. Give me one more AAA title, and I'll probably bump you up a few spots.
Yeah, probably. There's the other thing about this coming year is there's a lot of AAA third-party stuff. There's Final Fantasy 16. There's Remake 2. There's Resident Evil 4 remake. There's some older remasters. I know it's not next year, but Tactics Ogre remaster for your strategy heads. this Weekend in Remaster collection for this guy. Some of the other things, I think there might be a new Dragon Quest game coming out. It's going to be it's the COVID bubble is going to pop.
Yep.
Is what that is.
Yep.
But with that being said, the BXG podcast publishes every Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 a.m. Pacific, 4 a.m. Hawaiian, on podcast services around the globe. You check us out on YouTube, BXG Productions, Instagram, BXG Productions, Twitter, BXG Productions, for all of our socials, facebook.com/BXG Productions. And, get your thumbs manicured.
Let us know what you think. Give us input. You don't like our list? Tell us. Give us your opinions. We don't care about them, but I'd like to read them.
Right. If you don't agree with us,
you're wrong.
Fuck straight off.
Yeah, and be a friend, tell a friend.
Absolutely.
Let them know.
Yeah, we are still on our YouTube channel. If you have not subscribed, at every 100 subscribers, giving away a $25 gift card until 500. When we will give away a $50 gift card. We are 2 away from giving away a gift card. So subscribe, make your subscription public so that we can see that shit. And
And after that, I'll start taking off clothes.
Let's hope not. You were the one that said clothes were mandatory. It's in the opening montage.
No, that's YouTube. This is something else.
OnlyFans. Take care. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.